This guy's been working overtime. He's been all over at the free agency. Read him on CBSSports.com. NBA insider and good friend of the show, Kenny Berger, is in the house. Kenny, what's happening?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Doing okay. I mean, what are you buying what's a smokescreen and what's legit as it pertains to Dwayne Wade's future? What do you think?
I mean, nobody can predict it, and nobody really knows other than Dwayne Wade himself. But I've always felt like from the beginning with this thing that this was a negotiating situation, that he wanted to be treated fairly. He's given up money on numerous occasions and taken one for the team in Miami so that they could get better and put pieces around him. And now he wants that to be reciprocated, and I feel that that's fair. So you've seen that Miami has moved recently with a higher offer. There was reports that he had canceled some of his other free agent visits. Nothing's been set in stone, but I believe at the end of the day, he's going to return to the Heat.
Kenny, and maybe I'm viewing this in an unpopular way because I think most people would probably sign with Wade rather than Pat Riley at this point for this contract. But I think this is one of the reasons why Pat Riley's great at his job. I mean, he's kind of throwing away sentiment, and he's dealing in nuts and bolts business. I mean, Dwayne Wade's 35, and I know he was terrific last year, Renaissance season. But to give him $50 million without any sort of a negotiation is reckless. So I think Pat Riley's doing what he's supposed to do here, don't you?
No, absolutely, and I think Wade. I would say the same for him. I mean, he and his representation, Henry Thomas of CAA, are doing what they need to do to get the best deal for their clients. So it's always a dance. It's always a negotiation in these situations, and I think if you're Pat Riley, you have to somewhat find a way to be somewhat dispassionate about the process and look at this deal as, on its face value, which is, as you're saying, $25 million for a guy who's going to be 35 and has had injury issues. I think all the way around those factors at the end of the day come out in the wash, and I think they do what they did last year when things looked pretty desperate for Dwayne Wade in Miami. They find a way.
Ken, in non-free agency conversations, the one that keeps popping up is obviously Russell Westbrook. And should Sam Presti try to trade him, where could he go?
Well, it's interesting because that whole scenario is really going to be dependent on Russell Westbrook's feelings and what he believes is the best thing for him in Oklahoma City or elsewhere. And so on one hand, of course, you would think he's disappointed that Durant has left or is leaving. But on the other hand, this becomes now his team. I mean, they hand him the keys, and it's his franchise now. He no longer has to share the ball or the spotlight with Kevin Durant, and that's going to be ultimately a Russell Westbrook decision. There's no incentive in the CBA now as it is for him to sign an extension. All the incentive in the world is for him to play it out and get to free agency next year and either find himself a better situation, as Kevin Durant believes he did, or get himself paid an awful lot of money to stay with the Thunder. So people that I spoke with around that situation in the last day or so, it was too soon to really have any kind of determination on what that process is going to look like. But I will say this. One thing we know about Sam Presti, this Durant leaving is an aberration for him. His posture and his mindset in all of these similar situations, whether it's James Harden or Reggie Jackson, is not to be left holding the bag. And if he feels confident and strongly that there's a chance that Westbrook will leave, I believe he will not wait to see that day come. He will be proactive and make a deal.
I think you're right. Talking to Kenny Berger, CBS Sports NBA insider. Kenny, let me ask you this. All the moves, everything that's happened here, all the player movement, aside from the Thunder being deleted from the championship conversation given Kevin's exit, any teams bump up a level that are now truly viable and could be in the mix next June that weren't in the mix this June?
Well, it's tough to say because all this stuff is, the headlines are flying and you see things coming, and it's just a flurry of activity. But at the end of the day, what do we really have? We still have Cleveland as the best team in the East by far, and we still have the Warriors as the best team in the West by far, and by even more with Kevin Durant coming on board. So I don't know that anyone else really established themselves beyond what we already know them to be. I just think the interesting dynamic is going to be how good is Golden State, and can anyone else contend with them? I mean, I had a conversation with another executive in the league with another team. I said, how are you going to guard these guys? And he said, well, we're looking into cloning. We're going to see if we can take our best defender and make two more of him, and then maybe we'll have a chance. But it is crazy to think that a team that won 73 games, granted didn't finish it with a championship, but already had 3 All-Stars and the reigning 2-time MVP, and through a fluke in the system, they were able to add one of the best players in the league. It's really mind-boggling.
Yeah, and then they get Pachulia, who's a very tough player, and then now there's talk of Ray Allen coming out of retirement. David West signs their league minimum. I mean, are people just flocking there now to win a championship and do it as part of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the collective? Because that's what they feel like.
Yeah, so that's what happens. And you remember that was a similar dynamic when Pat Riley put the big three together in Miami with Wade, Bosh, and LeBron. Anybody and everybody wanted to come on board and sign up for the minimum and put a championship on their resume. And you're going to have a very similar dynamic with the Warriors. Plus, you have the explosion of the cap. So pretty much everybody who's retired or semi-retired in the last 3 years ought to be raising his hand and saying, I want to come out of retirement too and get paid one more time. So I think those are the two dynamics that are coming together there. And when you make the decision that the Warriors have made, which is to, they will and did have to make some sacrifices to make this happen. Bogut will be gone, Barnes will be gone. They'll have to bring back and reassemble their bench with basically minimum deals and a small exception. But that's the price you pay to have, the last 3 people to win MVP in the NBA on your team, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant.
Now, Ken, you write a lot as well. So 15 years from now, you're writing, you're giving perspective on this era of the NBA. What are you saying about these type of super teams?
Well, that's a great point, Tiki. I think this, a lot of people are saying that the Durant decision, people are being too hard on him. I personally haven't. I don't begrudge a guy, whether it's Carmelo Anthony, opting for money over winning at times in his career, or whether it's Durant opting for teaming up with other stars over money. I never try to get into, involved in criticizing players for those decisions. Those are their decisions. This is their career. But in terms of the dynamic of the sport, I do think, even though this cap spike was a 1 or 2 year sort of aberration, it has potentially historic implications. And I think 10, 15 years from now, we'll look back, and however many championships this Golden State team wins, we'll say to ourselves, how in the world were they able to assemble that team? I mean, it defies logic. And they were able to take a very small window and a sort of an aberration in the system and turn it to their advantage. And potentially, again, nobody knows. Miami didn't win as many championships as they thought they would when they got the big 3, and who knows what'll happen with Golden State. But if they do, well, I think it's going to be a landmark in the history of the league in terms of looking back and wondering how the heck did that happen.
It's Kenny Berger. Kenny, final thing, of course, Kenny, CBS Sports NBA insider. I mean, we can critique many of these moves and understand the new economics of the game. It's not worth it because it is what it is. But I still think, for me, if I'd attached definitive value to a move that I think is just reckless, and he's a good player, 5 years, 153 for Mike Conley. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, that's another sticker shock moment from this cap spike. It was something that was unforeseen when they did this deal a few years ago. The point of it was, A, to put more money in the owners' pockets, which they did, and B, to make it more difficult for teams to cluster stars. But the sort of the upshot of that is that when this TV money came in, the percentage of the cap goes way up, and you have a guy. If Memphis is between a rock and a hard place there, if they want to keep Mike Conley, they have to pay him the max, or somebody else will. And so that's where you see a deal of that magnitude for a player who's, as you said, a very good player, but certainly not worthy of the richest contract in NBA history.
Yeah.
The good news is that the money is going up so fast and furious that he won't be the highest paid player in the league for long. I mean, somebody else will come along very soon and pass him.
Yeah. But if that player's better, you can live with it. I mean, Mike Conley has very identifiable weaknesses in his game. He does.
Right. But think about it. For Memphis, I mean, he's one of, if not their best player.
Yeah.
If they lose him, where are they? You know, I mean, and you can't replace a player. You can go over the cap to re-sign your own, but you can't. If you don't have cap room, you can't go out and find a comparable replacement.
Yeah,
so
but
the
Ken,
teams are really in a tough spot there.
But I would argue, Kenny, where are they now? They're not going to win a championship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
no, it's fair.
I understand
it's fair. I mean, that's the there's only I guess arguably two teams that are in that conversation right now legitimately. So
yep,
there's
the
28
Sixers
on the outside looking in,
and the Nuggets. And I hear you, Sixers and the Nuggets. Kenny, great period, just outstanding work. We'll keep reading you, obviously. CBSSports.com. Ken Berger, thanks, buddy.
You got it. Nobody does free agency like the NBA.
Yeah, right.
They own it, man. They've carved it out.
And
well done.
And the players love it.
We love it. Something to talk about.
No, I mean, they love it because they're getting
Not
paid.
too. They're getting paid.